you. And the minutes of the annual parish meeting from last year were attached to this agenda when it went out. Are you all happy? It's a true record of what happened. All those agreeing? Thank you. So the first thing is me. I'm going to keep this brief. We've done so much this year that there would be no question of trying to list what we've done. And you can read the annual report, all the chairs have reported what all the committees have done, and the committees have done an enormous amount. And I think, as a council, we are doing more and more every year. I'm very proud of that. It puts pressures on, not least the clerking team, but I think we make ourselves more and more valuable to the community with every year that goes by, and I'm really pleased about that. We continue to support our permanent assets, the buildings and the toilets. We have the only toilets in the parliamentary constituency, I believe. And we do our allotments, our garages, all of that sort of thing. And we continue to support the long-established festivals, some that have come back from the dead, and I gather there's a new one this year as well. So we've got all of those things, all those cultural things that happen in the valley, which are so much a part of this valley, with its rich cultural heritage. But I think this year, we've had more working groups than I've ever known us have, and the benefit of working groups is that they're less formal, they're quicker, they're more fleet of foot than our proper committees that have to be minuted and approved often by the council and things like this. The working groups can make stuff happen in the order it needs to happen when it needs to happen. We've had a lot of them this year, and I can't even remember them all to list them, but I'm sure people in the room will tell me if I need to know. But I think that is really good, and one, and perhaps the most important of them, was looking at how many committees, subcommittees and things we have, with a view to whether we could streamline and make ourselves more efficient, make our workload work harder by perhaps reallocating things from one committee to another. And in fact, we've just agreed to disband one committee whose work will be spread over a couple of other committees, and will be less work for the clerical team, particularly frees them up to do more for the community and less paperwork, agendas, minutes, stuff like that. So we can do less talking and more doing, which is very much my thinking for the time being. And I think we are moving that way. That is not to say we're short of talking, because we all like to let's face it. But we are moving to being fewer kind of sitting and ticking and approving, and more what could we do, what could be next, what else could we do. I think that has been a theme for a couple of years now of this council, more than it's been since I've been a councillor. What else could we do? And I think that's a really good frame of mind, and exactly the frame of mind we should have. So I particularly want to thank the clerical team and Jen, who's kept us and me honest. And it's always there to say, no, you can't do that, yes, you could do that, and those sorts of things, as well as providing the information. Rich, of course, playing Find the Lady with all the firing. And Gemma, who was born behind me, who makes it all happen as well. So I think they're all really very good. And we couldn't function without them, we wouldn't function well without them. And now that Jen has passed her exam, and formal congratulations to the public, we are officially more competent than we were before, so that's good. So on that note, I'm going to finish my message and move on to the agenda. I'm assuming nobody wants to ask any questions. You're very welcome to ask questions if you wish.
Pardon me?
What on earth is that?
The daughter wants to face something, but just don't know
So we've got a video on the year.
Just about the annual report.
Right.
Just for ease of sharing.
The first formal thing, point 5 on the list, Parish Council accounts. Rich, are you going to talk us through it?
Yeah, I'm not going to paper rules as well.
Sorry?
Are we going through the paper copies as well? Or?
Do you want to make any reference to the paper copy of the report?
I don't think I haven't done to.
I think it doesn't need approving
Okay.
until the full council meeting, does it, Rich?
I suppose not. Well, I'll try and not repeat myself too much in this, because I've got to give one report to this, and then one report to council. So there's a danger that I'm going to be, quite repetitive in what I say. So try and bear with me on that. So in terms of the accounting statements, I'm just going to give you some broad brushstroke, assessments of it that you can bear in mind. So I suppose the first thing to note is that we started last year, 2023-24, with £253,277. We're ending this year with a projected 155,695. So as you can see, that's quite a big reduction. Part of that was planned. You'll be aware that we committed 40,000 from earmark reserves to the civic. So that explains some of it. However, councillors will also be aware that we did have quite a lot of unexpected expenditure which came from general reserves, and that's part of the reason why we find ourselves with perhaps a little less reserves than we would have intended at the start of this year. A few other things to note, I suppose, are if you look at the amount of payments we've spent, our payments have increased by 75,000 from last year to this year. Again, that is partly explained by the 40,000 from earmark reserves to the civic, but there's lots of other reasons as well. So I suppose the point being that in the year coming, we've tried to make allowance to kind of bring some of these things under better control. I'll go into that a bit in the next bit about our income and expenditure. So these are some of the things that have caused us problems this year. So you may be aware that in the election this year, in the past on elections, they haven't troubled us too much because they haven't been incredibly expensive. I think they were normally about £3,000. This one, surprisingly, was £9,000. So that dented us somewhat. You'll also be aware that this building was revalued last year. I think it went up from 5 million and change to 9 million and change. So that put 3,000 extra on the insurance budget. And as you can, in terms of the civic in total, you may be surprised or not to know that this year alone we spent £89,000 on this building. 52,500 was from earmark reserves, but the rest was from general reserves. Councillors will know that some emergency things came up with the roof causing extra money, and there were some additional emergency repairs needed on the building. So that's had a detrimental effect on our finances, unfortunately, this year. You may also be aware that things like staffing was a few thousand. I think it's about 4,000 over budget at the end of the year. Having said that, on the positive side, the Parish Council has continued to commit money, very purposefully to the things that it supported, down the years, and some new stuff as well. So, in terms of our grants, as the report said earlier, amongst, on top of the money we spent on the city, we've also committed 36,000 to other community assets, that's buildings in the community, 28,000 to projects and events in the community, that's your festivals and stuff like that. We've spent about £12,000 on communications and engagement, for which we've got a new website. You've obviously saw some of the new branding, or the refreshed branding, as Jen would tell you to say, in the annual report. I think that looks very good. The planning committee spent £7,676 on speed cameras and some parking bollards. And we've continued to pay £15,000 for Holme Library. The toilets cost us about £17,000 a year to run. And we've additionally been spending money to kind of plan for the future as well. As you saw, we spent about £6,000 on celebrating Christmas with the light displays in Holme and Holme, and the Christmas trees for our villages. And we continue to spend about £10,500 on our benches and shelters. Finally, you'll be aware we show our commitment to the children and young people of the Holme Valley by a grant of about £25,000 to fund youth work in the Holme Valley, including a worker to deliver youth clubs. So that's my first and second bit. The next bit, the next document you have in your pack is the bank and investment balances, the cash and investment reconciliation. Now these records are all, it does say the 1st of February, but they're all from the 28th of February. In terms of our bank accounts, this is document E we're looking at here, if you're not following me. So our bank accounts are okay. The trouble we've got is that in our Unity Trust current account, probably by the end of March, we will probably only have maybe 20,000 left in that account. So we might be teetering on the edge a bit of needing to go in, using money from other accounts. But I think, as I said earlier, I think we are in a better position now, given the decisions we made about the precept for next year. It may still be a difficult year next year, but hopefully by the end of next year, we won't need to use all that money again, and hopefully we'll be in a much better position at the end of 2026. In terms of the earmark reserves, which is document F, most of those are going to be as they are at the end of the year. Staff pay will have gone, that will be down to 0. Rolling grants should be down to 0. So there should be some reduction in those. And some, you know, as you'll be aware, some of them are changing entirely when the new year starts on the 1st of April. I don't know whether anybody's got any questions for me or...
Okay, well I think we all happy, but can I take it you all note these very happily? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Which brings us to no pressure but questions from the public.
None from me.
None from me, okay. Well thank you, that's it for the annual parish meeting. If you want to turn a minute to get another cup of tea or something before we start the full council meeting, please do. If anybody does want to do it now, if you don't, I'll just go straight on. These small person.
You do get that.
So make them as soon as they possibly can.
So that's where I would say.
you for the minutes, has to all get recorded. Do you have anything you wish to raise? No? Thank you. And again, I need to ask everyone, is there anybody who wants to record in addition to our own recordings? No? Thank you. Are there any items, and we're not suggesting from up here that there are, the clerk isn't suggesting, are there any items that people feel should be discussed in private session? You're all happy for everything to do, okay? It's the same apologies and the same reasons that we had for the meeting a minute ago. Are you all still content? Thank you. And that's a new one. Have we got any written declarations, DPIs,
None received.
none received? Any from officers, officers, as well as councillors? Nothing received from anybody. Okay. Are there any declarations of interest in agenda items? Glenn?
Although with item 242597, and this is moving money from one project budget to another, so I'll have some payments to be made. I think those payments were approved at the Finance and Management Committee, which I couldn't attend, but I am part of Holme Open Gardens committee, and obviously that award of £1,000 going to them would need approval to moving the money in this meeting, so I will abstain from voting if that's okay.
I will suggest to the meeting, unless people feel strongly otherwise, that Glenn remain in the meeting but doesn't vote. Are you happy? Are you content with that? Yes, can I see hands? Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Mary?
Yeah, if you could add the possibility of grants to the Friends of Cliff Ranch.
Right. Can I make the same suggestion that Mary remain in the room but doesn't vote? Can I see hands in favour of that? Thank you.
Can I declare that the Friends of Cliff Ranch?
Right.
Oh, and also I'm related to Councillor Williams' group.
Thank you. Next meeting, the minutes of the meeting a year ago. The last full council, not a year ago. We're not on annual road now. They were attached. Are you happy that they are an accurate record for a start? Yeah, thank you. Are there things you want to discuss that aren't already on the agenda that you think have been overlooked in any way?
I've got some things to go over from the last meeting minutes, please, Chair.
Yep.
That's okay. First of all, the Code of Conduct review, that was minute 242587. It remains an outstanding action for myself to set up the initial meeting of the working group appointed to review the Code of Conduct. That consists of myself, Councillor Blacker and Councillor Lyles. It is a small working group. Before I set up the first meeting, I do wonder whether, as a council, you want to consider appointing a further member so that you've got 3 councillors as part of that working group, rather than 2.
Can I suggest we deal with that now? Do people feel we should have a third member? Regardless of who it is, do people feel it's a good idea to have a third member? Can I see hands if you do think it's a good idea? That's a majority. Do we have any volunteers, people who would like to be on it? I mean, I'm willing to be on it. Oh, we've got 4. Sarah's willing to be on it.
Can I make a suggestion that in order to represent the balance of the council, you think about one of your independent councillors, so that you've got representation?
They haven't offered. We can only think about it if they put themselves forward. So we will move on. Thank you. So that was that. Any other?
So do you want
So
to?
are you happy? I mean, we need to vote on the 2 people who put their names forward. Can I see all those in favour of Councillor White? All those in favour? That's a majority.
favour of Councillor Collins being part of the working group?
So we now have a working group of 4 rather than 2, which is
Yeah, you're more likely to make progress.
yes. Thank you. Any other things to?
Yes, so on ward asset registers updating, these have needed updating since the early autumn, for which I apologise. They will remain an outstanding action until they are completed. The target is to include them in papers for the annual council meeting in May. With the onset of spring, just a reminder to all councillors to let me have any updates or observations of any issues you might find with benches, shelters and so forth in your ward, so that the maintenance contractor can attend to them.
Are we getting one of those sheets again which says what they all are?
I can put out the sheets as they are. I do need to update them. So would you like me to send you the sheets as that for your ward as
Yes,
they are?
please.
Will do.
Can we access the spreadsheet? No.
That's what I'm talking about, the ward asset registers that we've got for each ward. So I'll send them out again to all councillors as they were. Okay, but they do need updating. I've got about half a dozen of you who have sent me information that needs adding to them. I've just not had a chance to do it. Is that what you're asking, Chris?
Well, I think I did it. It was more than a year ago, so how often do you want us to do it?
Right, that was the last time you had them updated was in the last annual meeting.
Doesn't it make more sense for us to wait until they're updated before they're circulated for you to look at what I was looking at? Martin?
I think that's what's behind Councillor's question, is we actually have to have paper copies. And is it possible to have them in place on the website or something like that, very soon, log into it?
Yeah,
That's made for you.
Yeah,
That's possible.
Councillor Black and then Councillor.
I think we've talked about this before. I think it'd be really useful to have a kind of Dropbox or something, and we have access to all the councils or as part of the website that only councillors can access our password, because this is the kind of document that would be really useful on there, because it's a living document, it's going to change all the time, and what will get sent by email will be just a snapshot, and then things will change. I mean, I do understand there's a fair amount of work will be required to do all of those things, but I think it would probably save time.
Yeah, once it's set up, it will save time. Andy?
I think we used to be able to access it, unless it's changed in the changeover of the website.
The old asset register that's on a Google site is still in existence, which is actually sort of embedded in Google Maps, but it's not a spreadsheet. We can do a Dropbox, we need more access to it.
Can you shout up a bit?
Sorry, I'm very quiet. We can do Dropbox, we need more access to it with minutes files. I think some of you have got them on the go for working groups now anyway, so it's quite simple to do.
Okay, so I'll add that as an action for the clerking team, because Gemma can help me in terms of Dropbox.
You may need to train us, Gemma. Certainly some of them. Well, you will need to train me. I'll express it that way.
The third matter arising concerns councillor training. In part, this is no longer outstanding. You'll have seen in the agenda there's been an evaluation received, and that's been shared as part of item 2425193 today. A statement about councillor training received 2024-25, so a summary of all the training councillors have had will be included in papers for the annual council meeting.
Okay. Any questions or comments? No?
And then the fourth point is to do with the Holme Valley Parish Council Action Plan. That's from minute 2425-120. The action plan was last presented at the December meeting, and some amendments were made at that meeting. It was resolved that you wish to consider the plan at each meeting, but I've not been able to revisit it, and there is no time available in tonight's agenda to give it proper consideration. An updated plan will be presented at the annual council meeting with time allocated for discussion and amendment at the June meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I'm assuming, since people didn't raise them earlier, that people don't have any other matters that they think have not been dealt with that are arising from those minutes. Yep, okay. That brings us on to minutes of standing committee meetings. The first one is to note. Sarah or Chris, which of you is going to do Kate? To move.
Madam Chair, I think it might help. I move that we accept the minutes on that meeting.
We all know those minutes, Dee? And then planning is to approve, Mary.
Can I ask that the council approve the minutes of the planning committee held on the 10th of February 2025, please?
All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody feel any further matters arising from either of those two? No? Financial matters?
Can I just
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say that the clerk team is aware that draft minutes are awaited for the Service Provision Committee meeting on the 24th of February, the Finance and Management meeting on the 3rd of March, case meeting on the 10th of March, and staffing on the 17th of March. So we are aware that those are to follow.
We're back to you, Rich.
I was just going to say that item arising from the planning commission minutes that we approved are further down the agenda, important items for item 181.
Okay, Rich, over to you, RFO's report. No, schedule of payments.
Schedule of payments, yeah. So the schedules of payments for February are just some notes. But then there are 3 payments to approve now on the March schedule of payments. Those are the 3 in yellow that are kind of separated off from the others. So that's Holme Show sponsorship of programme, £1,500. Redback Limited, that's part of the brand refresh, £1,260. And then Home Architecture, which is the toilets condition survey, which is £1,920. So that the rest of them are all authorised, or not further down the agenda. But if you could approve those 3 items, it would be appreciated.
Thank you.
You need to approve it, Chair. You need a vote.
Right. All those in favour of approving this schedule? That's a majority, thank you. And that's the schedule. Any further actions from that?
Just to say that £470 remains in the Chair's expenses budget line, and I'll liaise with the Chair regarding that remaining budget.
It could do with you spending it before the end of the financial year, makes things easy.
It's a matter of choosing which charity I give it to.
Yeah.
That's the only
Okay.
thing I need to think about. I won't be using it.
Oh, no.
And then back to you, Rich, for your report.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really want to, overrate the pudding about finance, so I'm probably not going to say an awful lot this time. I suppose I just want to go back to what I was saying about the level of general reserves we've got. I know you probably fed up with me talking about this, but it is something that's continually pressing. Because we've been diving so much into general reserves over the last year or so, we are going to be quite low on our levels of general reserves at the end of March. Obviously it's the end of the financial year, and I probably was aware it was going to look a bit shaky by the end of March. We're going to be down to, I reckon, about 15%. We should be at 25%. Basically, it's there to cover us. If we've got no presets from Kirklees, it's meant to be there for us to keep things running. As things stand, like I say, I think we're probably going to be down to about 15%. So that doesn't mean we haven't got, we've still got all those earmark reserves, so it's not desperate. But the advice would be to be over 25%, so just be aware of that. I'm hoping, as I said before, that this extra money we put in the precept next year means that hopefully when we're having the same discussion next year, it won't be a problem, but it's a bit iffy now, to be honest. I'm not suggesting you necessarily do anything other than just be aware that you're probably going to be in breach of the recommendation. It's only a recommendation, but you will have too little money.
Okay, thank you. Are there actions arising people feel people want to comment, ask questions? No? Okay. Moving on to, we'll go to the full council. The first one, 181, review the planning. Do you want to talk us through this one, planning recommendations and the planning committee?
Only briefly, yes. So, our councillors will be aware that we discussed this at some length at the full council meeting. And then subsequently, after the planning committee on the 10th of February, we looked at it, we considered it again. We had another lengthy, but I feel really productive discussion. I think the impetus behind what we're trying to do is to try and use resources efficiently for both the time of the clerking team, but also the time of councillors as well. So we already had an interim change of arrangements in place, I think from October until January, when we ceased to look routinely at all planning applications. So the proposals here are moving on from that position. So I'm just read them out because people haven't actually managed to completely internalise them. So the first one is, the first decision was that the planning committee will remain as a standing committee. The second one is that the frequency of the meetings of the planning committee will be reduced from approximately once every month to once every 2 months. And the third one is that the committee will review the criteria that we are currently using to identify significant applications and see if that needs amending or adding to. And then item 4 is that because planning applications come in all the time, so a decision was made rather than as we're going to continue to consider some planning applications, we can't leave everything to a bi-monthly meeting. So in order to examine in the interim applications received in the interim, the committee will establish a subcommittee which will meet in alternate months. So one month will be planning committee meeting, the next month will be a subcommittee which will be looking at planning applications. And the fifth recommendation is that these change procedures will be in place for 6 months and then we will renew them. So what I'm asking today is for full council to approve these recommendations from the committee. Some of the changes will have to wait until the new civic year, but there is some work going on with them that includes the looking again
us that the review group that's looking at heritage structures is continuing its work. It's not just about planning. That's
Yes. Meeting schedule. This is produced every year. It usually over the next couple of months gets a change or two as it gets bedded down and people spot things and new things crop up. But we've got a schedule for the next year, and as people have noticed some huge oversight in it or something, I assume we can just move to approve. Everybody got that?
Yeah. That's it. Thank you, Chair. So this has been shared amongst the park team, so it is in effect an amended version. Thanks goes to Rich and Gemma for the feedback they gave me on this new schedule. Do note that a further amendment is needed because I've left a blank line in under the bank holiday of the 26th of May, which I just noticed earlier on today. Notable features that you might want to remark on. There are 5 Monday slots freed up by changing the schedule of planning committee meetings and taking out the case meetings as well. And those are shown in blue. Second point, in contrast to previous years, we've been able to keep the Monday evening preceding a full council meeting free, and this will have a positive impact on making the meeting schedule more manageable and hopefully lead to a more proactive and less reactive way of working. Third point I'd like to make, there are 2 instead of 3 staffing committee meetings scheduled for 2025-26. However, the first staffing committee meeting of 26-27 is scheduled early on the 13th of April, and that scheduling is helpful in terms of the Clark team appraisal cycle. And the fourth point I'd just like to make you aware of is that the timing of some meetings is in response to external demands, and so works against us being able to equally space out meetings. For example, there needs to be a council meeting in late June, even though there has been one in May, for the purposes of the annual governance and accountability return. And finance and management meeting takes place in December, so that budget recommendation may be made to full council, and also in January, so that a precept recommendation may be made to full council. You may remember that that meeting has been reinstated at request of the chair, having not been scheduled this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've just got a question. Is there any chance that the 19th of May annual council could be the week before? Because that is the Monday before the Lisa's annual council.
You mean our next meeting? I think it's too late to be honest with you. I think everybody's got it in their diary.
If you can.
Can I ask how many people at the meeting would like that meeting changed? Can I see those in favour of changing it? 2. All those against? Everybody else, I take it? Afraid you've got no support. Referral to the monitoring officer. Well, we set the dates for this council, not the 13th. If people choose to have 2 rows, they have to juggle their own calendars, and we don't all juggle ours.
So I've been notified that 1 referral has been made to the monitoring officer since the last full council meeting on the 3rd of February regarding the conduct of a councillor. I've been told that a decision has not yet been made as to whether or not further action on the part of the monitoring officer is required. Members are asked to note that nothing further to what I've just reported can be said, and it would be inappropriate to discuss further.
Okay, so whilst we've got down here, consider any other actions. There aren't really any we can take, so we can move on from that one. Fullstone Ward by-election.
Yes, this is just to note the statement statement of persons nominated with regards to the Fullstone Ward Parish Council election. The statement was included in your pack.
And one of the candidates is here.
So that's just a note.
We note. Can we note that? Yep. Thank you. Annual report. I won't repeat what I said half an hour ago. I mean, I think there is more to say about all the work of all the committee chairs, and I could say that and make it, but I don't know. I think it might be good if the committee chairs, particularly those who've written the report, could do a little 4 or 5 sentence or paragraphs worth of annual report rather than me doing it on their behalf. I'll start with Andy. Since you're first in the annual report. And that gives the rest of you time to read your own reports before I call you.
While you're all preparing your comments, can I just say it is a bit of an odd situation, I recognise, in that the completion of the annual governance and accountability return requires council to have approved an annual report, hence this agenda item. However, as a council, you do need to be mindful that you are in a period of heightened sensitivity due to the ward election scheduled to take place on Thursday. So that requires the council to be particularly careful as regards to what is being publicised. For this reason, the report has been emailed out to members and paper copies only provided at this meeting for any members of the public attending, rather than being included in the published papers for the meeting. So what I would request is that you do not share that emailed report, and also that this paper copy, you're welcome to keep it. I've not numbered them. I've no intention of collecting them in at the end of the meeting. I think that would be overkill. But please don't share them more widely until we get to Friday.
Are you okay?
I don't really want to say anything much, except that clearly we consider things like the precept and requirements, and we spend a lot of time on that. I guess people outside the committee might think that's what FNF is about. There's actually a lot of other things go on in the background, besides those two things. We had a working group really as well this year looking at the new financial regulations. And again, perhaps we've not all realised that this is happening in the background, but it has made life a lot easier for the other committees. We don't constantly have to keep going back to full council to approve. So I think that's been a very worthwhile thing to do. Not really very much else to say other than thanks to committee members. It's not perhaps one of the most glamorous sort of committees, but everybody contributes. Particular thanks to Rich, who does all the work really invaluable. So thanks to Rich.
Thank you. And I'd like formally to thank the Economic Committee and your work for us. I mean, it's kind of our backbone, so it's important that it gets on and does stuff as it has been doing. Thank you. Service completion,
a glamorous one. Well, I'm not going to sort of repeat, the details that I've got in this report. Most of it already known to the councillors here. I'd perhaps more like to comment about the tone, if you like, of the past year, which I think has been very proactive. We've had a full year with a lot going on. There have been quite a number of working groups. I think that the video that we just see, which I found really uplifting, and for me that reflects a lot of the activity that we see, certainly all across all committees, and certainly for me in the Service Freedom Committee. Also, I've been really keen that we continue to
Gemma for that video, which is great. It's really good, and I found it uplifting too. It's really smashing to see. Thank you. You've done most of yours, Mary, really, haven't you, with your recommendations? Have you got anything you want to add?
Yes, it's only really, the two big issues really this year have been what you've already heard about, which is this struggling, working through how to deal with planning applications. But the second one really is the setting up of a reference group in order to make representation to Deputies Council on the ideas of the local plan. I have to say I was extremely delighted about the response from local groups, because at the moment we've got 12 local groups involved in this wide reference group, and I expect that more are going to join us. The reference group submitted an initial response to Deputies Council. It didn't quite meet the deadline, which was the end of February, but we did get it in. We did get it there the following week, an initial response, which was obviously slightly patchy, and very rough about the edges, but I feel it did set down a mark that the Parish Council is wanting to seriously engage in this issue, and to make it very clear that this isn't just about housing, it includes a lot of areas which impinge on the life of residents, so I feel that's an important piece of work. And I just want to pay, I feel that the meetings have been friendly and respectful. I mean, we have dealt sometimes with, with issues on which we have quite strongly opposing views, and we've managed to do that and stay friends and have those meetings in a very respectful way. And I do want to particularly thank the Vice Chair, who's Councillor Andy Wilson over there, for absolute steadfast support throughout the which I greatly appreciate.
Thank you, Mary. Sarah, Hayes?
Yeah, well, again, I'm not going to go over what going in the report here. It's fair to say that the work of the Climate Action and the Communication and Engagement Committee has really cut across the whole of the council and the other committees. So it's not a negative step that we're decided to disband CASE in favour of putting that work firmly at the centre of what the council does and enabling us to work in a more flexible and more fluid way. And I think that's a really good and positive move forward. Having said that, we've achieved some really substantial things, it seems to me, in terms of community engagement. The work on the website and the rebranding we saw as absolutely critical to making sure that what we were doing was presenting to our public and the community what we're about in a very visible way and an accessible way. And I really must give thanks to Gemma for all the work that she's done on it, because it's been absolutely astounding, and we've achieved our purposes and our ends with this, I think. And it obviously is work in progress. It's not something that's static. So that work will continue, but having now embedded, if you like, climate action and community engagement within full council, that enables us to be more proactive, more quickly. We still have working groups when we need them. The big event, I think, for the community is something that stands testament to the work of all the people who were involved in CASE. And it was an absolutely resounding success. And we'll come to that later on the agenda. But many thanks to all those members of the committee who took part and other people who were not working on the CASE committee, but really worked with us, and service provision was one of those joint activities really, because so much of it cuts across the work of CASE. So going forward, and there will be a report to full council which is making recommendations on the things that were part of our 4-year priority plan but have not been addressed yet. And and all the members of the committee have been asked to contribute to that, as indeed have all members of the council. So look forward to the next stage, if you like. Thank you.
I'll briefly speak for Tom and the staffing committee. The staffing committee meets for very obvious reasons, and generally it's about making sure people get pay increases and all the rest of things. That, as Tom says here, the big news was Jen's qualification. And there's an item on the agenda about 2 down where Jen will talk about the implications of our changed status very briefly. And then, does the person with that phone want to deal with it?
No, she's trying.
And I'll be making a statement at the end of the meeting on behalf of the staff committee, which will come to at the end of the meeting. So then we need the next on the next item on 8.6, update from the civic VAT working group. I think that's you, Jen, isn't it?
Yeah, I can give a recap on behalf of the working group, if that's all right, and then probably the chair of the group will
John's the chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, VAT reclaim was raised at whole council training on 24th September, and we received some free advice from Councillor Lars' accountant. We've had 2 lots of YRCA advice, and that led to the working group being established. The working group met on the 19th of February and will be meeting again on the 2nd of April, and consists of Councillor Bellamy, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Lyles, Councillor Ransby, Alex Gray, Councillor Dixon, Julie Butterfield, Jim Hilton-Jones from the Trust, and Dawn from the Trust, and myself are also attending those meetings. So, there have already been some points considered to be put forward by the working group. It looks as if there is a need to extend the lease. Council has looked at that before, and there is a proposal to extend the lease to a term of 50 years. The Trust would wish the lease to recognise that it's not responsible for pre-existing and historic repairs needed due to a long period of neglect, but is responsible for ongoing maintenance. The lease should allow the Trust to apply for external grants. Clarification is needed whether the Trust pays towards the cost of insurance in lieu of rent. And the other thing that was discussed was the importance of clear governance and lines of responsibility, so that there is delineation really between the building being the council's responsibility and activities in general repairs belonging to the Trust. So it has been suggested that a memorandum of understanding could be drawn up, as well as the lease, to clarify those governance issues. Getting the governance and the lease right is really the priority of the working group, and then the right VAT arrangement should flow from that. So there's quite a lot achieved in that one meeting. We've also, the group has decided to engage Ramsden's to work on the lease. If we had been able to just amend some of the existing lease, then it would have been a cost of £500 plus VAT. But the fact that the length of the lease is one of the things that will be altered means that in effect the old lease is being surrendered and a new lease has to be drawn up. So the cost is going to be £1,500 plus VAT. A memorandum of understanding would cost £750 plus VAT. So that would come from the admin budget. Also, we've engaged Parkinson Partnership, who are the VAT specialists who provided the YRCA advice we received, on terms of £100 for the year plus VAT, not 100, £800 plus the VAT, and that's a fixed sum. And we had a meeting on Wednesday, the 19th of March, with the VAT advisor, which was really useful. We're now awaiting the report from her. Whether the advice is to change the lease to allow tax reclaim or not, there are certainly possibilities to explore on making the council more tax efficient, and that was a really useful outcome from the meeting. So to conclude, from my perspective as clerk, this is very, very much in progress and moving forward at pace.
Thank you. I think we're simply asked.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I haven't repeat everything that Jen said, but it is absolutely moving at pace. The meeting with the Paris Partnership was extremely useful. I think we found out a lot of things that we probably could have been playing about already, that we were quite sure about. And Councillor Wilson was also at that meeting, and I think, would you say it was really useful?
I think my overwhelming sort of thought was it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
We thought it was fairly straightforward going in. Clearly it's not. But there are opportunities.
Absolutely. So the only thing I would like to ask the council, to be honest, is could we move that we carry on as a working group, and we carry on looking at working with Branston's as well as the Paris Partnership, and hopefully move on to getting a new lease.
Okay. So can I see those in favour of the working group carrying on? Just that much of it. Right. Those in favour of working in the partnerships done as outlined, continuing that. Thank you. Anything else? That's it?
Maybe just to note the work that's already gone on.
And note, and thank you for the work that's already happened. It's obviously complicated and needs you to concentrate. You can't idle around in meetings. Okay, thank you. And it occurs to me that I did not take a vote on the annual report of the Parish Council. Item 185, the previous item. Please can I ask you to approve the annual report? All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, advice from YLCA and councillors holding dual roles. Andy?
Just before we start this, I think I'm related there.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I think as with the other items, I suggest that Andy remain to report. So the dual roles. Are you going to talk about the dual roles?
I can talk about it, yeah.
I think you want to talk to this issue as well.
Yeah.
So just to remind members, so a query was sent to YLCA on the 17th of December regarding this issue of the two dual roles. I won't repeat what the query was around, because you've got that in your packs, I know. So we received the advice from YLCA on the 18th of December, so a very quick reply from them regarding that. And I know that Councillor Bailey wishes to speak on this matter. Two things I would suggest in terms of moving forward, because I've had a good look at our standing orders today in terms of how that relates to any actions you may decide to take, any resolutions you want to make. So I do advise that you note the advice you've received through YLCA. One action you could consider is to confirm Standing Order 13, Section H, Section 3, and that is that trustees appointed by the council will complete a written dispensation confirming that they can remain in the room typing clerk, we've not really made very much of doing written dispensations before items are discussed. When it comes to routine things such as, we know, for example, we've got 2 representatives on the Civic Trust who are there representing the Parish Council's interest. It does make sense to just have a written dispensation in place at the start of the council year that covers you for the whole year and hopefully makes clear what the position is.
Can I ask a question? Are they not supposed, the ones that we've appointed to look after our interest in the various other trusts, won't be able to vote?
But that doesn't mean that they should not take part in the discussion.
If there was some really contentious around between us and Holme Library, and they felt that the library was against the parish's interest, but they, if it was a close vote.
Generally, they don't vote. Generally, the advice I give to them when it comes to matters that come to a vote is they don't take part in those votes. But you as a council have appointed them as your representatives, and my advice to you as a council would be, you therefore want to hear from them.
Well, I suppose if it came to some sort of strange crunch where we weren't very much to go through, I can't imagine this happening. We suspend stuff.
You could.
Okay. Lawrence, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, but I mean, I raised this originally back in December. I don't think I was sort of saying at that time it wasn't allowed. I didn't think it was appropriate. And the YMCA's advice is helpful, but there is a focus there about what happens in the meetings. And my concern has been as much about what happens outside of the meetings, behind the scenes, with the many decisions, sometimes quite minor decisions, if you like, decisions that are made on the way, that very often the clerking team will consult with the chair of the committee about matters that are arising. And I can see, I mean, this would apply in terms of trustees, both with Holme Library and with the Civic. But we all know that there's a lot bubbling at the moment with the Civic, and it's likely to be the case for the next couple of years. So I think, you know, there will be an awful lot coming up for the chair of the FNS, it will be, because as they've taken over the responsibility for those 2 assets. So I think it's not helpful to have those dual roles, and I don't think, and I said this previously, I don't think it's a good look either for the public. You know, I think it would be much better if there were. Now, I'm not proposing. Jen has referred to the standing orders, what could happen forever. I'm not proposing a change to standing orders on this, because my personal feeling is that a light touch with this would be hopefully successful, in that if it did apply to an individual, that they would make the right choice and the right decision to say, you know, had I got potentially a conflict here, would it be better if I did hold those dual roles?
Thank you. So do you wish us to vote on anything? Do you want to make?
I suppose if we were to go down, I'll be guided here by Jen, but if we were to go down that route of not actually formally changing standing orders, then I guess it's you know, whether anyone has any views on that in this room, and also whether we just want to, take that view.
So are there people who want to talk about, and we're talking not about all members of committees, we're just talking about the chair. David?
From our perspective, we've got 2 people who are on the Civic Committee, I believe, Councillor Randall and Councillor Wilson, and on there. We've put trust in them to be on those committees, to engage with those committees on behalf of the Parish Council, and therefore they will bring the information back and we can challenge or discuss it with them, and they can give us their opinion and us liaison with the rest of the Civic group. Any reflection should be placed on them other than the standing orders we have in place. Those seem to more than accommodate
but I don't, the chances of them voting those trustees that are on, I don't know, on the line, I'll use that one, probably wouldn't vote anyway on something that was for that. So it's the same, but I don't see how that would have any impact on anybody being chair. I mean, the person that was the trustee for on the line chair recommended, she still looks at grants for on the line, etc. So I would just tend to just go down the dispensation route, which is what they do. Okay, to be honest.
Anybody else want to speak to this? What do we do?
Just a question really. Would it become an issue if the people who were doing these dual roles held a chair role within the parish council? Because they get casting votes. You see where I'm coming from?
Which is if they're not allowed to vote at all,
Right.
they can't have a top their costing
Yes,
vote.
of course. Yeah.
It goes to advice, won't it?
They could have a costing silence and frown a lot, I suppose.
It's a go to advice.
Does anybody else want to comment on this? Or Jenny,
Are you saying then that they can't vote at
can you
all?
speak?
It seems to me that the people who represent these other groups are the ones whose views are most knowledgeable. They know more about that than other people. So I feel they should be allowed to vote because their input is so invaluable.
That's a complication. We can't keep that thought separate from this discussion. But currently we're talking about an informal, and we're not talking about undoing a standing order, which you're talking about. So it's
Okay.
save it up for the next council. If you, I'm not saying don't do it. I think it makes it a bit more complicated for tonight. Any comments on the thing proposed? I'm not sure where we've
So
got to.
I think possibly you just want to note the advice received through YLCA, and an action for me as a clerk is to, when you've appointed representatives at your annual council meeting, to get a written dispensation form to those people.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your contributions on this. Next item is for the community celebration. Who? Oh, the general power competence, I left it out, sorry. Having built it up earlier, I left it out. Turned over, Jen, do you want to take us through the implications if there are any?
Yes, I don't want to, I don't want to end up reading out the briefing paper to you because you've got the right to leave. I recognise that, but I would make some comments. First, under the legislation, eligible councils have the power to do anything that individuals generally may do, as long as they do not break the laws. And it is intended to be the power of first, not last resort. So, as a council, you've asked yourself, what you have to do is ask yourself if an individual is allowed to do it. It does give you more powers, this general power of competence, there's no doubt about that. If the answer is yes, an individual can do something, you would be permitted to act in the same way. And the whole push of this really is to reduce the risk of legal challenge you might find. That doesn't mean, of course, that you would want to do anything that you could. It's always, as you are well aware as a council, not about the whole scope of things you can do, but about focusing on what you want to achieve and what will help you get to your aims. And I've got complete faith in this council that you will focus on that and not come up with other schemes that aren't related to your vision and goals. So I would say that. I'd also say, as a council, we'll no longer be using section 137 for spending where no other legal power can be identified. Don't need to use that power anymore. And then there is also this opportunity to seek local council accreditation if you should so wish. And I've put some information about that into the briefing paper. So that
Thank you. Questions, comments? No? Well, I think if we read the briefing paper again, we might think about, you say we can do anything we like, which I find a bit hard to imagine. And that it sinks in, we might suddenly think, oh, perhaps we could do this, or perhaps we could do that. I think, question, I mean, we don't have to have a big deal question time now, over time, questions will come up and we'll do them. And I mean, in terms of making our financial decisions, other than we could borrow now if we chose to, and I am not suggesting that we borrow, we could, I believe. The fact that we were doing it under section 137 didn't affect anything we did, we just had to write it down when we were doing it under section 137, didn't we?
It was a limitation because there's only so much of your funding you can spend on section 137 projects. And I mean, we've already seen in the F&M meeting looking at grant giving that you no longer have to find those odd, obscure little legal powers to make grants to certain organisations and so forth. So it will be, and it already has been, helpful to the council.
Right. Thank you.
Just don't go mad.
As if. Which does bring us on to the big. Well, does anybody think there are any further actions? Sorry. No. And we note our change to general park competence. The big community celebration.
So, all plans are in place. We've got a meeting next week. We'll be on the plans. Anything more to say at this stage?
Everybody's welcome at the next meeting, 1st of April, 9:30 here. So always welcome to have new input in the working group. So yeah, it's going to be great again. David, speaks there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to reiterate that all the feedback that came back from participants, stallholders, people who visited, was overwhelmingly positive and saying, you've got to do this again. It was a great networking opportunity, primarily, and finding out about things that people who live here all their lives didn't know about. You know, it is a real communications opportunity.
I think I'd like to reiterate our thanks to the people who organised those one and are keeping the images going on the next one. Thank you.
Can I just say, in relation to this annual meeting, because I feel that this meeting has probably lost something by the fact that we have the community celebration. And I just think we should have a way of making this annual meeting so that we have more than one
This
person.
isn't an annual meeting, the one that was earlier was an annual meeting.
This
is an
meeting,
full
where
council.
people used to become an awarded community champions and things, which the community celebration in many ways replace. But I do think we should have a way of making sure we have more than just one person sitting at this annual meeting. So we've got to be thinking of something to draw in. I know that's
over to the new communications. Engagement.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So, carry on with the good work. Well, it says here, consider any other action, carry on with the good work is the any other action I'm considering.
The important thing, Chair, is that we're going to note that the settled date for the big Saturday, the 8th of November, 10 till 4.
Yeah. And I must remember not to stand near the doors next year because I froze nearly to death. Councillor Pleasant's community events. It's you again, Sarah, really, I think, to talk about.
Well, we've talked about this at KSM, much more widely about one of the ways in which we promote what the parish council is doing and find out what people want and need is by actually meeting them and holding events and going out to events that are existing. So that whole business of how we as councillors actually engage in any of those opportunities and what we choose to do or what we think are our priorities is actually really quite important. So some of the things that we've talked about here, about whether we attend things that we've always attended or whether there are new things that we think we ought to be at, whether there's stuff that we've missed out on, whether there are things that we could do as a council in terms of taking us out into the community rather than bringing people in here. So there's a whole raft of things, I think, to be considered.
Right. Okay, so anything you want to add to that? You want to report further?
The reason it's here, rather than with the subcommittee, which will be, isn't the subcommittee doesn't release yet. Case has finished now, they've had their last one, and if councillors want to attend some of these events in this year, calendar year, then I'm going to need to book some space. Before, in fact, the first of them is the Folk Festival, which is in May, which is before the annual council meeting, so before the subcommittee exists. So I wanted to get a steer on whether council would like me to start booking any space at festivals or whether they'd rather wait, in which case we understand that it's only really going to be in the second half of the year that we're able to attend things. And then there's also the potential options of whether we book space as in have a table and a stall and a pull-up banners or whatever that might be, or whether there are councillors that are just happy to turn up to events with their lanyard on and go and sort of network and meet with people. So that was kind of why I put it into this meeting, even though it's sort of slightly out of place. We need to start planning longer term because if we want to think about things that are happening in the summer, decisions need to be made before May. Maybe.
I think I will propose that we say book spaces in the things before May. All those in favour?
Just the folk festival.
Yeah, I mean, Holme Open Gardens doesn't really have anything that we can, and I would say probably if we want space at the Arts Festival weekend, which is the middle of June, then we kind of need to
Obviously, book
have
the
done
table.
that before May.
I think if we've been before, we can make an arbitrary decision now. We can review whether we go back every year, but from between now and June, are we happy for Gemma to book the spaces for things we've been before? Yes?
We have been to the Folk Festival before.
Can you put your hands up, please? Yeah. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, is that mirroring previous events you've attended and the Folk Festival? I'm just trying to clarify for this.
Yes.
Clarifying what we're voting on, I think we voted.
You've got what you need, Gemma.
Yeah, I will be coming for you to be volunteers on stall then.
Okay, now, having been ahead of time, sorry. Andy's just admitting to secret arsonist.
On a serious note, how would we be represented at something like a bonfire?
Well, I had an informal discussion with somebody about this, that it varies hugely by what the event is and how you're going and why you're going. If you're tipping up to a bonfire, you don't really have an agenda, it's something you want to go to, you will meet a few people. There may be things you go to where we would say, well, I think you should wear your councillor's badge, and there may be a specific objective for going. Every meeting is going to be different from every other meeting, I think.
I think probably it would be useful to have a schedule of all the events and some sort of recording of who says they might go along and what.
I can circulate this list.
I think that's what's happened before, isn't it?
Yeah. And then we can identify then if there are events where we actually want quite a few people to go and we want them to wear the councillors' badges and make themselves conspicuous, or they're just there to celebrate bonfire everything. Having been ahead of time, we're getting behind, so I'm going to ask people to be brief, please, from now on, because we're in danger of running late. We were about 40 minutes ahead at one point.
You're not doing bad, Chair. I mean, because of Memorial Working Group scheduled for 8:38, so you're still about 8 minutes ahead.
Oh, good. But you know me and my record. I hold both the longest and shortest meeting records. And so that brings us to COVID, Memorial, where I guess it's only going to be a couple of minutes, Mary, is it?
It might even be less than that. Yeah, really at this stage, all I want to say is please, those of you who are free, come along to the opening of the COVID memorials on Saturday 5th of April. It's getting very close. There'll be 10 o'clock at Sands and then 11 o'clock at Holme Library. But I'm sure you'll be shocked when you realise that actually neither the COVID Memorial Orchard nor the COVID Memorial Garden at Holme are actually fully complete, despite everybody's best efforts. However, I think they should both be good events. Numerous speakers, so please come if you can. Encourage family and friends to come as well, so make it something really worthwhile. And it's almost alongside the 5th anniversary of the outbreak of COVID. So,
And if you have got children, the Holme Library, it's Lego Club on a Saturday morning, so they'll be entertained.
It's actually COVID vaccination day.
Oh, and there are refreshments at Holme Library after it's rail there. There will be refreshments in the library. Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Climate emergencies.
So I just asked that we return our thanks to Mary for carrying this through to completion, something that started way back in the distant time with the quite
It's set off by Councillor Jason Brooke.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she's had to formidable irritations.
This morning.
Climate emergency standing item. Sarah has talked at great length about it. It must be a thread of everything we do and considered in every action we make. I think there's not much to say to it. It doesn't have to be a standing item on an agenda. It is something that the chair should remind a meeting of at the beginning of every meeting, I think, and just say, let us remember every decision we make, we should consider, is this as green as it can be, is this as biodiverse as it can be? I don't think it needs a special number on the agenda.
It's been resolved that it's standing item.
Well, let's have it right at the beginning, almost in with the procedures, so that it just is said at the beginning and everybody's reminded to bear it in mind through everything they discuss, because it applies to every item on every agenda. Councillor training? Sorry?
I'm just making my
Oh,
notes.
sorry.
Right, okay, so councillor training, so an evaluation was distributed in papers. The reason it's on the agenda tonight is so that those evaluations reach all members of the council. Any actions coming out of evaluations most properly it should be referred to the next meeting of the Finance and Management Committee, because that's the body which considers councillor training.
Thank you. Queries, questions, anything people feel should be acted upon? No? Referrals from the Standing Committee, service provision, toilets.
Just what it says in the agenda, really, that the Service Provision Committee commissioned a condition survey for the Gartside building, including both public toilets and a rental unit, approving expenditure of up to £1,920, including VAT. Alison's done an awful lot of the legwork for all of this, basically, so it may be that you as a council want to thank her for the work she's done towards this. It's been completed and the outcomes from the survey will be considered at a future Service Provision Committee meeting. The invoice has been received. You've actually looked at it and approved it anyway on the schedule of payments, but it just needed to be said, really. I would say that you've already approved that. It's on the schedule of payments and it was listed by Rich. Do you agree with that, Rich? Don't need to approve it
We
again.
don't need to approve it, but we can formally thank Alison for all her work. Yes. 195, civic interiors.
So there's quite a lot in the narrative of the agenda about this. I've got a few observations I can share with you as council first before you might want to discuss further. So I put to note the report from Holme Civic Hall Community Trust signalling their intention to move forward with the foyer, stairs and landing project. And it's to note because I would argue, as your clerk, that approval in principle of the project is implied by the fact that earlier in 2023 the grant was approved by the council. So that's the first thing I would observe to you. Second point I want to make is neither Parish Council nor Service Provision will be the decision-making bodies regarding the design that's going into this particular project. That's the work of the Trust, which will endeavour to keep the Parish Council informed, but are actually the authority running this project. The third point I would make is a reminder that through your 2 trustee appointments, Holme Valley Parish Council does have a direct input into trust decision making and reports this to Service Provision Council. Next year it will be Finance and Management, and that gives the council a mechanism to provide its feedback through your representatives. Fourth observation, the Trust, as I understand it through lengthy conversations with their chair, want to be trusted to get on with this project and use the funds they have raised. Fifth comment, in a period of change and review, and this council has decided to put significant investment into the Civic, and now at the Civic Trust request, it's reviewing the lease and so forth, partnership working has never been more important. And this is an opportune moment to have a larger meeting as a precursor to defining what partnership working between the Trust and the Council should look like moving into the future and help develop that common understanding. And the sixth observation I would make is, as a first step in this, I've organised a meeting inviting the Chair of the Trust, the Chair and Vice Chair of Service Provision, and the 2 Parish Council Civic Trustees to discuss some of the issues around the interiors project further in a face-to-face meeting rather than the kind of lengthy exchange of emails we've been having, and also the development of the visioning exercise, and that meeting is going to happen on Tuesday the 1st of April.
Thank you. So, we need to consider whether we agree to this meeting. So, all those in favour of that meeting going ahead, can I see your hand? That's pretty much everybody. Thank you. Are there any other actions? I mean, we've already got a group working on the lease, which is going to very much overlap and work with this. Are there any other actions people feel would be appropriate? No? Okay. Thank you.
So we're going to note then the report from the Trust,
Yes.
signalling their intention to move forward with the foyer stairs and landing project.
Noted, and please. Noted. Right, further service provision recommendations.
So the first recommendation is to place the £400 remaining in the phone box budget line 4735 at the end of the financial year into an earmarked reserve. That's because it's intended in 25-26 to refurbish the Holme Red Heritage Fund kiosk using monies from the 25-26 phone box budget line 4735 and then this EMR to cover the costs.
Do we?
Can I just ask a question? When such refurbishments take place, do the people who are in the locality know it's going to go ahead?
Yes, yes,
Just repeat that to me.
yes. So in the last communication I sent to Home Residents Association, is it? I said we were waiting until the new financial year for that reason, so they are aware of that.
So are people happy with that? Yep, and thank you. And then there's another one about
Yes.
War Memorial budget.
Yes, so this is to look at the recommendation from the Service Provision Committee at the end of the financial year to place any remaining funds from the War Memorials budget line 4750 into the War Memorials EMR. So it's building up your financial resource should it be that we don't get a grant to help repair the Hepworth War Memorial, and the council can take that on as its own project.
All those in favour? Thank you. S&M Diamonds, I imagine this is Rich.
Yes, so when the Finance Management Committee met to do their grants reviews in March, even ahead of the meeting they were aware that there was a bit of an imbalance between the amounts they had left in the two pots, the 4315 Community Assets pot and the 4405 Projects and Events pot. What they decided to do before even starting to review the applications was to consider making a recommendation to council to via money between the two budgets as needed. So basically, I've already informed all of the award winners from the community assets budget, because that was the one where all the money was. I've told everybody who wasn't successful, but then all the people who won awards against the project and events budget that needs approval from this committee, from the council, I've basically said that we're waiting until after this meeting for a decision to be made. So you can see down the bottom, that's the list of all the applications that the Parish Council wanted to make from somewhere, from money from somewhere. As you can see over the page, the Parish Council we'll still be left with, you know, that the finance committee will still be left with £9,460 unspent, even if all those violence take place. So, you know, there's not a question of, you know, dipping into general reserves. This is coming from the finance and management's own budget lines. It's just that the finance committee cannot decide to move between them. It has to be council that makes that decision.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this, or can we move to a vote? Okay, all those in favour of approving that environment from one pot to the other? Thank you.
Yeah, can I just raise a point with this? I just think that this list of grants that we've been given is something that we should be really proud of. And if we hadn't raised the precept for next year, this would be what would have been cut. So I think this is verification for what the decision that we made. And I think it's great to see that list made there.
Thank you. So we've approved that. And
You need to approve payments pertinent to any award as well, so that we can
specific
pay out the grants.
specific payments involved in the violence. Can we approve those, please? Thank you. Planning on spend? Is anybody speaking to this?
I'll put this forward. There is the planning budget. We've got one more meeting for the financial year, but as yet the monies for the design code haven't been sent. And unless we meet on the 31st, which is next Monday, and unless we're going to be invoiced for the design code work on that evening, which seems unlikely, then possibly we need to create an EMR for that work.
So you need us to approve earmarking that money?
Yes.
Right. All those in favour? Thank you. Round refresh? Anybody need to speak? Or we're noting the transition. We liked what we saw in the film. Is there anything else we need to add to that? Because we are just noting at this point. No? All those note? No?
Right.
Thank you. And then we need to approve the refresh branding. Okay. All those in favour of the refresh branding? Thank you. Which is just as well, because it's already happened.
I haven't rolled it out yet. I'll publish any of it. But there was some information about the work that the working group did and the transition and the work that we've done with the design agency right back in the past as well. So hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Can I just ask a quick question? So the new branding logo, that's the one that's going to be used in green mainly?
It's mostly green, but it's also available in other colours for different backgrounds.
Could you send me a copy of that?
When I get the full brand guidelines, and I'm still waiting for those from Redback, I will send them out, and then we will get them as digital assets. So what I've done with the report and for the video is I've stitched it out of what they sent us on the design work, but I'll get some fully high def
Do you know
versions
how long
of
that
it.
will be?
I don't know.
It's just that we've got the logo in the Holme Open Gardens brochure, got this, it's the old
Lovely. How long have you got? I can send you this. I can send you this.
It's probably got to print this week.
All right. I'll send you the logos
Because
version.
it's just a small one.
In that case,
Just
it'll
say
be fine.
thank you.
We're going to get a high res one so that when we need banners and things, it'll be crisp.
Okay, the next item is 4 recommendations from Kate about moving money from A to B. I propose just going through the 4 and asking people to vote on them. They're not contentious, and it's moving from one budget line to another. So the first one is 1,000 being moved from budget line 4650 to EMR 336 right events. All those in favour? Thank you. Second, 1,000 to be moved from 4650 to new EMR for digital and physical assets relating to the rollout of the branding. All those in reserves at the end of the accounting year. All those in favour? Thank you. Case budgets, again, these are essentially shiftings, and unless people are eager to talk about them, I suggest I'll go to what we're considering at the end of item 201, approving the transfer of control of 341 Gartside Energy to service provision from the 1st of April. All those in favour? And to consider approving control of the budget 465 over 1500 reverting to full council for use by the Communications and Engagement Subcommittee. All those in favour? Thank you. Yes. To approve from April the 1st, expenditure up to £5,000 from that same budget line for ongoing communications and engagement. All those in favour? Yeah. To consider moving control of the MR 336 Royal Events, transferring to full council. All those in favour? Any other action with regards to case budget lines, any MRs? Does anybody have any other thoughts on what else we might do? No? Okay, thank you. Miscellaneous items, correspondence, charitable. Activities, I went to a dinner at Saddleworth. It was free. But it was interesting for those whose memory goes a long way back to 2010. Debbie Abrahams was the main speaker, and I caught up with her, which was nice. And then we have this as a standing item on our agenda: reports from questions for Kirklees Ward Council. Jane.
Just an update actually about SIDS, because Councillor Wilson asked me about them the last time. We have had emails, the ward councillors have emails about positions on SIDS. So in Home Valley South, there are two. One provided by Kirklees Council, all the wards get one, and then one additional one from the Parish Council. So this was around the beginning of March. So the location then was New Mill Road and Sheffield Road, and then the new proposed locations. And the ward councillors maybe a couple of years make some recommendations about where the SIDS will go, and that's including the Parish Council. The Parish Council has paid for. So the proposed locations, I mean, they may have been moved already, are Scoldmore Road, and there's already been a SIDS at Scoldmore Road, but it's going in the other direction this time, and also Greenfield Road. Again, there has been SIDS, but this is going to be in a different location, just above where the Junior Infant School is. So those, if they're not already done, then that will be taking place soon. I don't know if that answers your question about the SIDS.
Yes. It is in terms of locations, yeah.
Yeah.
There were other questions around the data, but we'll get that in due course.
Yeah, I think we should have data is so that it doesn't go sort of out to the public, the wider public, because it can be used and interpreted in different ways.
But I think
it's okay to go. I think they're going to say that.
We haven't
That
had
information.
since a year.
if I say, Chair, I think it's fairly insulting of the officers of Kirklees Council to think that parish councillors cannot be trusted that we wouldn't disseminate this in an irresponsible way. Donna?
Yeah, just on, actually I'll just brief on SIDS, but it is something else that I was going to say. We haven't had any data back yet, or I haven't anyway, I haven't seen any. And the Parish Council one for Holme is still actually at the school, and we have said, they have been in touch and asked for new spaces, but we've actually, me and Council Greaves have actually both said that the one outside the school is better to be discussed with you as a parish council on where you want it, you know, totally. No, my other thing was, I recently had a meeting with Aaron Taylor. He works with voluntary groups, he works with Kirklees Council, but he works with voluntary groups to put together governance within voluntary groups. I'm just trying to company president here. But he also works with all voluntary groups on how to get funding as well. So he will direct them to places who are giving funding away, he'll look at constitutions, all that sort of thing. I recently met with him at, he was at Brockles Village Trust, and we got talking in general about other groups within the Holme Valley. And I did sort of say to him, how would he like to come and give a briefing on what he does? Because like I say, he works with all voluntary groups, and he can also appoint voluntary groups in directions of where they could get funds from without just automatically coming to Parish Council. And he did say yes, and he did say he'd like to work closer with the Parish Council. So I did say I would bring it up and see if we could perhaps get him to come and either do a briefing to the full council, or maybe even a briefing to FNM, since FNM.
He could, I think it would start at F&M though. It should be pointed out that F&M has just refused a grant to exactly just a similar group that was asking for a grant. So he's very welcome to come.
Well, like I say, Aaron works for Kirklees. He actually, he's paid, that's his job from Kirklees Council, to work with the voluntary sector.
I've got two people, Sarah, Ben, Chris.
Yeah, can I suggest that next time you have a conversation with Aaron, that you ask him to have a word with us as our lead on the Valleys Anchor, which is a funded project from Kirklees Council through third sector leaders. So Valleys Anchor actually does work for Kirklees.
He knows those, but like so he is Kirklees.
So
that's who we're directed to.
I'm just suggesting that next time you have a conversation, that would be really useful, because you don't want two people doing the same thing without consulting with each other and working together in partnership.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Can we invite him to the big event in November?
Yeah.
And there'll be lots of
Yeah,
groups there.
if somebody wants to send an invite, yeah. He'd be more than happy to come, like I say, he's more than happy to come to a meeting or go to FNM. If somebody wants to send him an invite, I can give you his email.
Great, thank you. Purchasing of land and garage. I suspect that we simply either recommend that we vote on referring this to FNM to consider further, rather than talking about it tonight. All those who want to refer this item to or to FNM. All those in favour? Thank you. Yes, I have a statement to read, and this is just to note, it's not a discussion document. And I want to make it clear, I'm speaking not only for myself as chair of this council, but on behalf of the staffing committee, which I would remind you comprises the chairs of all the committees and has representatives from both major parties and independent members. And we've been disturbed by some recent social media activities. We all use social media for updates on local events and sharing of funding available to community sources, advice on where to get help, and to join in public debate. The public appreciates this, and it shows residents how councillors can be a good force using our council email addresses. We must avoid bringing the council into disrepute, and this is most likely to happen when we engage in party political discourse. Thankfully, it's rare that such discourse reaches the threshold where a breach of the code of conduct takes place. Additionally, we must remember our duty of care to the clerical team we employ. Recently, there have been public comments that expenditure on administration is too high. This could be interpreted as a desire to reduce the staff or their hours. The clerical team and their friends and family live within the valley and they use social media, so they read these criticisms but cannot reply and can be concerned or alarmed. They are not responsible for the decisions the council makes. Councillors are. They are not allowed to make political statements themselves. Councillors are. So please remember that while it's fair game to have a go at councillors, it should be done carefully and in a way that cannot sound like criticism of the clerical team. The staffing committee is unanimous in requesting full council to note the following. 1. As an employer, the parish council has a care of duty to its staff. 2. All 3 officers, their friends and their families live as well as work in our community. 3. Discourse in the public domain about council issues relating to staff or staffing matters is discourse about 3 identifiable and known individuals. As private individuals, due to their roles, officers do not respond or take part in public sphere communications about council matters. However, they may be affected by it, or as private individuals may find themselves addressed directly by local acquaintances and contacts about it. The informal channels officers have to raise concerns are very limited. The only formal channel is to raise a grievance, which is a big step. All councillors have signed up to the code of conduct, and the councillors signed up to the civility pledge. The staffing committee requests councillors to be mindful of both in their own public discourse and of the council's duty of care to its staff. This statement has been discussed and noted by the staffing committee, which now requests full council also to note its substance. Thank you. And that brings us to our final item, which is items for publicity. Are there particular things people want to propose as being pushed from this meeting? No? Okay. Gemma.
The video that you saw earlier and the annual reports, we are holding off until after the election on Thursday. I'm not working on Friday, so it's not going to appear on Friday, it'll be Monday.
Okay.
And I've also got some updates for the list of grants as well.